Good afternoon. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this afternoon at the House of Lords. My name is Abby King Kawaja. We're delighted to have this afternoon with us Baroness Flathers, our keynote chief VIP guest. Also with us, Lord Guthrie. And of course, we have a representative from the Defense and Naval Advisor, Commodore Mushtaq Ahmed from the Pakistan High Commission, and distinguished guests around the table with the organizer of the event, Shahzada Hayat, UICF President.
I just want to say a word, first of all, about the memorial. Until 2002, when the memorial gates were built, there was actually no memorial to the people from the subcontinent. And I think when you think about it, it is really very amazing that nobody had felt the need to create some kind of memory of all that sacrifice and commitment. Also, there was no memorial to the people from the Caribbean or Africa. So this memorial on Constitution Hill, which is the road from Hyde Park Corner to Buckingham Palace, commemorates all the non-white people, not just the Indian subcontinent, but also the Africans and the Jamaicans and the other people from the Caribbean. After all, I don't think many people know this, but the Jamaicans were actually at the Somme. They had come in the First World War to die for their mother country. And it is also very interesting to know that it took them 6 months to get that permission. And I think these are things which not only we should know, but we should pass on to our children. Because all the people who are here now are here because of the war, last war, because we were all part of that, and the start of the immigration from our part of the world is rooted in World War II. And I don't think we should ever forget that. Lord Guthrie is going to talk about El Alamein. I want to just tell you a little story that is personal. My husband has a friend who sells books, particularly if you want some rare book or something special, you tell him and he'll get it for you. And he told us that when his uncle, he's German by the way, and when his uncle was being posted to North Africa, the soldiers were told, don't worry, you are going to fight only the inferior races. So that is what the attitude of the Germans was to us, because there were a lot of Indians in North Africa, so we were the inferior races. I think it's worth remembering that when we listen to Lord Guthrie. The inferior races, after all, didn't do so badly. So thank you very much for listening to me.
In the El Alamein campaign, here was a decisive part of the Second World War, a turning point, a victory that was obtained in El Alamein, seeing the collapse and fall of the mighty German army. Who were involved in the El Alamein campaign? We must never forget the great sacrifice of those people who gave their lives, or best part of their lives, in that campaign to do their utmost to make sure that oppression doesn't win, to make sure suppression doesn't win, to make sure tyranny doesn't win, to make sure terror doesn't win, and make sure that discrimination doesn't win. And for under that banner, and equality and fairness and justice, those people fought for. And they gave, as I said, there yesterday for our today, for people like myself to be sitting here with an eminent man as the Field Marshal next to me. Now, what significance does El Alamein have for me in particular is as follows. Members of my family, which was then India Baroness, came from the northern part, which is today Pakistan, and my father served actually in that campaign, which was called the Desert Rats, under the command of then the Field Marshal Montgomery. those soldiers who fought in Alamein were from the Commonwealth countries, in particular the British Indian Army, which today is Bangladesh, India and Pakistan. And they all came together as one voice, one strength, one energy. Sikhs, Christians, Hindus, Muslims, they all came together and fought with and for Britain and for make the world a safer place. Field Marshal, I think that most important thing is, and I appreciate Britain and people like Baroness here who has worked tirelessly to create a memorial for those particular unforgotten soldiers of the Commonwealth countries. And I think that we must make sure that we never ever forget their sacrifice, regardless of how politically correct or incorrect it is. We must always celebrate. We must always celebrate their victory. We must always remember them. We must remember that a lot of them were very young officers, young soldiers who died in those campaigns of the First and Second World War, and subsequently around the world there are still people, soldiers who are fighting for world order and dying, and we send them our, we salute them and their services. And for me to come here today to be with someone like you sitting, and of course our dear Baroness, who herself has been a tremendous friend of the international community. She has never put any particular obstacles or barriers and gone for one. She is a champion of promoting community cohesion here in Britain. She has worked tirelessly for charity and so forth. And I think today, my main objective is here today, Field Marshal Lord Guthrie, you as Chief of Staff, and of course the Baroness, is this. Any soldiers who are outside of NATO, who fight alongside for a world order and who are killed, must not be just pushed aside and must not be just forgotten. These soldiers, they leave behind widows, they leave behind orphan children, and I think, my Lord and Baroness, there should be a particular fund should be set that any soldier like this, regardless of which country they're from, if they're fighting for world order, if they're fighting to eradicate terrorism, if they're fighting to make this world a safer place, and they are outside of even NATO, but they should be treated as a NATO soldier, and their families must be looked after. It's a great honor and a great privilege to be here with distinguished guests here today, and particularly my Lord Field Marshal, yourself, and Baroness. Thank you very much.
I hope that event should make a difference, but at the same time, we must not forget honoring those who are participating and contributing all this must all be backed with few actions, which probably we are not good enough in doing that. But still, as I see it, it's a big contribution, and I myself feel honored, not directly or indirectly, part of all these efforts, because like we mentioned, your family, I also belong to a family who fought Second World War. I never knew the type of ceremony we had. I still have those medals which my father won during Second World War in my home in UK. So these are all the contribution, how we honor it, and we are all part of it, and I'm happy that we still remember them, those who laid their life for all these efforts.
I tell you, the Commonwealth means a lot to me, and I look back at history about how the Commonwealth operated as we're really one body. And that is why I think that El Alamein is a very good example about how allies can work together. There were really two battles of El Alamein. The first one, which was won decisively by the Germans, and they advanced and fought at Gazala and Mersa Matruh. Then they rather ran out of steam because they had very long lines of communications and they couldn't keep going. But undoubtedly, the Desert Fox Rommel was a most astonishingly good soldier, and with very inferior numbers, he led the Commonwealth forces, and the British in particular, a very merry dance. But shortly after that, when Auchinleck, who was, I think, in many ways a great general, had been brought up in the Indian Army, he was very much Indian Army. He had not commanded British soldiers before, but he did not get on terribly well with Winston Churchill, and he was replaced by Field Marshal Montgomery. And the first battle of El Alamein ended in June-July 1942, and the second battle began in November. Now, I think we ought to look back. It was a decisive battle. It wasn't a great battle like the Battle of Kursk and various other battles in the Second World War, but it was a decisive battle, but it changed things, and after El Alamein, things were never the same. Montgomery was always under great pressure to go on to the attack before he thought the British and the Commonwealth were ready, and he resisted that. So when the second battle began, he had 200,000 extra men on the ground. He had very many more aircraft, and he was quite prepared. Now, Rommel had fewer people, but in the first El Alamein, that didn't seem to matter because he outshone, outmaneuvered us, and he got within really a very close range of Cairo. And if Cairo felt that would have been a terrible humiliation for us, the Allies. Now this was, as I say, not a decisive battle like the Battle of Kursk was, or you can say D-Day was. It wasn't like that. But we forget that until El Alamein, the Allies had not really won any battles. And if you read in Churchill's memoirs how depressed he was, that he was depressed about the generals, he was depressed about the performance of the army, and he bewailed the fact. And he did say in his memoirs, will we ever win with the kind of people we have? And El Alamein showed him, and showed the British people, and showed the world, that we could win at El Alamein because of the reinforcements. We had vastly superior numbers compared with the Germans, but one still had this great doubt that Rommel and the Afrika Korps could outmaneuver us. But the Afrika Korps had advanced nearly 2,000 miles across North Africa and were threatening Cairo. And when the Allies went on the offensive, they pursued the Afrika Korps for 1,800 miles, which is a very, very long way indeed. And the force was astonishing. It was a very mixed force. I think all the Commonwealth were present, at least the Indians. Pakistan didn't exist then. The New Zealanders, the Canadians, the French were there. They had 2 brigades from the Free French, and it was a marvelous example, I think, of combined warfare. And of course, Rommel had a great deal of difficulty because when he wanted to retreat, he had messages from Hitler in Berlin that no one must go back a single yard. And of course, that was really difficult because he had no flexibility. But where I do think Montgomery was, and I'm glad the present Lord Montgomery is probably not here, he was a very successful general. I don't think he was a kind of brilliant general, probably, but Rommel was, because Rommel could do very much more with small numbers. Anyhow, in the end, as we all know now, the Allies prevailed. But after El Alamein, it was decisive in the sense that it gave us a new spirit. It made us pull together. And I think it was a great example about how the Commonwealth worked together.